After months of delay and some advocacy from the government and notifications from telecommunication operators in Nigeria, the ban on phone SIM cards not linked to national identification numbers (NINs) has taken effect. The government says that insecurity is the main reason for finally putting the full ban into effect. A number of daring kidnappings have heightened the calls for tighter security and for SIM cards not linked to NINs to be banned, which means that many Nigerians are now unable to make calls with those lines not linked to an NIN. In December of 2020, Nigeria's telecoms regulator had ordered mobile phone providers to ensure that the Know Your Customer or KYC aspect of their SIMs registration included NINs. The NIN contains personal data identifying the user. The deadline for the NIN registration has been delayed a few times before the ban on unlinked SIMs went into effect on April the 4th, 2022. Communications Minister Issa Pantami, in a statement, reminded Nigerians that the enrollment for the NIN is a continuous exercise, and the NIN is now a precondition for service in telcos, banks, the Nigeria Immigration Service, and several other government services. Over 125 million SIMs have had their NIN submitted for linkage, verification, and authentication, while the National Identity Management Commission has issued over 78 million unique NINs. But there are requests for yet another extension of the deadline. The National Association of Telecom Subscribers has asked the federal government to extend the NIN SIM policy deadline by another 3 months. On the show today, it's all about the Nigeria banning of the non-NIN linked lines. This is Business Edge. I'm Tolulope Adeleru-Balogun. And my first guest for today is Gbenga Adebayo. He's the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecoms Operators of Nigeria. Gbenga, good morning and welcome to Business Edge. Thank you so much for joining me.
And thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. So we know that the directive on linking the national identification number to SIMs has been on for over a year now, but there have been 1 or 2 extensions given to Nigerians to make this happen before the government or President Buhari finally agreed to the cutoff date being April the 1st. But when you look at the number of active lines, 197 million active lines, not necessarily individual or unique active lines, but do you think overall there has been enough time given to Nigerians to link their NINs to their SIMs?
Yes, I think so. We ran this for a total of 14 months from December 2020 till 1st of April this year. Lots of campaign has been done, both by the operator, by the National Identity Management Commission. At all times when you make or receive a phone call, people have been receiving SMS alerts, either asking them to link their name with their number or to obtain the link with their number. It means that from December of 2020 till end of March this year, there has been actually enough public notification to that effect. Prior to December 2020, the National Identity Management Commission, NIMC, has been doing the enrollment and capturing for a period of 4 years, long before then. So if you actually add that to what we are talking about now, it's actually 4 years plus another 14 months, which we think that it's actually enough time if the will is there for people to have obtained their need and have a link up to their SIM card. Part of the problems in the early part of 2021 was access to enrollment centers. One of the things that we did through the intervention of the minister was to allow service providers to capture citizens' registration at their various experience centers. So it means that with that provision in place, there has been more access and more touch points for people to actually walk in and to enroll. Unfortunately, because of our last minute kind of behavior as a people, where we are, and today stands at over 70 million subscribers, unique SIM cards that do not have link to their services. So this is where we are today. So I do not think that the further extension of time will solve the problem. I think it will not change the behavioral issue of our people. I think that now that there's been now a restriction on the ongoing calls, people who are affected should just endeavor to walk to those experience centers and to go and they have their name captured and have it integrated with their SIM cards.
Okay, so I just want you to re-emphasize the number again. Right now, you said there are over 70 million unique lines, not necessarily 70 million Nigerians that have been, it's the lines themselves that have been barred. So what are they barred from exactly?
Over 70 million SIM cards, over 70 million SIM cards. That could be many unique individuals. You know, the average is that a person may hold up to 3 to 4 SIM cards. That's what statistics have shown. So we have about 70 million plus SIM cards that are not linked to any link. So and what this has done now is that.
Okay, so before you go for it, I want to understand what the restriction is exactly. So right now, what we hear is that the restriction is on making calls, but for now, these lines are able to receive phone calls. So is it a point in time where maybe there's a cutoff mark where these lines might be deactivated, or they'll simply continue to be restricted from making calls until they link with their NIN?
For now, the restriction is only on outgoing calls and text messages and SMSs. Those lines can still receive phone calls, and they can still do data services on those services. Okay. However, if the numbers are not speaking to progress, it's not impossible that tomorrow, sometime in the nearest future, there could be another layer of deactivation on those services. Because the assumption would be that if you have not made any effort and there's available points for you to upload your link, to obtain your link and upload it, perhaps there are some stories around those lines. So the advice to people is that if really and truly your line is being bad for making outgoing calls now, endeavor to go and have your NIN integrated with your SIM card, because we don't know what will be the last layer of instructions from government.
Okay, so there are several parties involved in this policy, the NIMC, telcos, Nigerians, as you mentioned as well, even the ministry. But on the NIMC side of the equation, and I've personally experienced this myself when I was doing my own linkage, there was a lot of downtime, and then there was a lot of issues, particularly with the telcos. In as much as Nigerians may have a last-minute mentality about things, did the telcos experience any issues when it came to the sending of the information, the communication with the NIMC servers? Because a lot of people have said they've even done the linkage, but they're surprised now that they are even restricted.
Well, because I can't speak for the Identity Management Commission because I don't work there. But we do experience also some delay in uploading and in verification of the data that is uploaded to them. Our subscribers has also come to complain to us that the numbers submitted to us, when we verify it, it doesn't come back okay, that it was NIMC that issued those numbers. So I can't speak for NIMC and what obtains at their end. But what I can say today is that the crowd that you see at the various operators' experience centers and you see at NIMC offices today, that's not our crowd. That's a crowd on account of NIMC. Because where we can, we have been capturing the data and uploading the data to an NIMC infrastructure for verification. Those who are coming now to complain, they're either coming to obtain their NIN afresh. When their data is uploaded, it's taking time to have it verified and assigned from and cleared from NIMC. So the bottleneck actually today, unfortunately, is at NIMC and not at the operators' end. And unfortunately, as operators, we're having to bear the brunt of this. The crowd in our various experience centers in the last 2 days has been enormous, quite overwhelming. Crowd management has been a major problem for us. And we are now worried for safety of people who actually visit the experience center, because sometimes you can't even control their anger, actually. And this is not a crowd on our account, it's a crowd on account of NIMC, I must say. And so it's a need for NIMC to do a bit more.
Okay, so you mentioned about bearing the brunt, whether that is in the physical sense, as you said, with the massive crowds, and we've seen those crowds as well at the experience centers, but there's also the economic brunt that telco operators in Nigeria may be bearing. Do we have any idea? Are you able to share any facts and data with us right now as to how much has possibly been lost or estimated, or even a guesstimation that your members of your association have lost in the past 2 or 3 days because of this barring of this restriction that has come with the non-linked NIN SIMs?
The reality is that we are confronted with what we are facing at the moment. We are not looking at the economic costs. We're not looking at the economic implications. So the numbers are not of interest to us at this time. What's of interest is how do we resolve the problems that we have in hand. Our subscribers who are aggrieved on account of what has happened due to problems not caused by them, how can we persuade them? How can we get them? How can we assist them? How can we get them to do the needful? How can we have services fully restored back to them? Those are things that we worry about at this time. issue of how much income or revenue is being lost now is not a consideration, and no operator is looking at that for now.
All right. So finally, Gbenga, before I let you go, so as you said, you're not in support of any further extension, and we know that the Nigeria Association of Telecom Subscribers has asked government to consider a 3-month extension to this deadline, pushing it back yet again. But when we look at the situation, there's no way we'll even get 100% compliance if that was to happen. Are there any compromises, do you think, that can be made? Is there any conversation or any kind of olive branch that government might be able to extend to Nigerians that are experiencing some very difficult times, business owners, even just individuals trying to go about their daily activities?
We don't know what's in the mind of government. We don't know, but all we can do as the industry players is to provide the feedback to them to see what we are facing. Unfortunately, we've been in the steering committee that has driven the extensions, that's requested for the extensions that we got over the last 14 months. And I must say, for the records, we got a total of 8 extensions. If we are now where we are, to be very difficult to go back to the authorities to say grant further extension, because the question will be in the extensions that you got. What numbers could you capture? So we'll only appeal to citizens. So please endeavor at this time. There are no gains without pain. So endeavor at this time to take the effort that they can. Go to the experience centers, go to NIN services, follow instructions and guidance from those who work there. Have your NIN issued, have it integrated with your SIM card, and life can return to normal. And it's a lesson for all of us. When there's a call from government, it's very easy for people to stay behind the comfort of their laptops and smartphones and complain about what government is not doing. There's a call for action. There has been a call for action from government on citizens to go and enroll in the last 14 months. A few people just look at it and they ignored it. These people at this time also had probably complained in one way or the other about government and activities of government. So let people do their part. Let's all our citizens do our part. Let's look at the greater good. Let's support government in this regard. And at the end of the day, to help us with a credible and reliable national database that will be good for economic planning, security, architecture, and the rest of them. So the appeal is for people to actually go and follow this process, where we guarantee as operators that we'll continue to provide all that we can to make it easy and to make it seamless for people. We'll also appeal to NIMC to do a bit more in terms of on freezing the bottleneck at the infrastructure end.
All right, Gbenga Adebayo, thank you so much. We'll definitely be checking in as the situation around this progresses, and hopefully the crowds do reduce and it does not become, as you said, maybe a security conversation for the telcos. Thank you so much for your time today. All right.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Fantastic. So over 70 million unique lines, unique SIMs right now are restricted from making outgoing calls, SMS, and a few other things. But of course, as my guest has said, it doesn't mean that tomorrow we won't wake up and the government will say that these lines only have a number of days before they're fully deactivated. But there's an economic conversation to be had to this, and that's the next point of call right here on Business Edge. Do stay with me. And joining me now is Gospel Obele. He is the chief economist for Streetnomics. Gospel, welcome to Business Edge once again. So we just spoke to Gbenga Adebayo, and he is the chairman of the Association of Licensed Telecom Operators of Nigeria. I tried to pin him down on how much revenue they have lost in this ensuing situation, but he has said that none of the telcos are particularly concerned about revenue. The concern is about getting Nigerians linked and letting people go about their daily activities. But there's the economic conversation to be had around this. Now, according to the NCC, telecoms companies contribute about 12.5% of Nigeria's total GDP, and an estimated 70-something million unique SIMs are now barred from making outgoing calls, SMS, and things like that. What are the economic repercussions that you're anticipating from this if it continues like this?
Yes, it's quite a very serious situation, in all honesty, because in Nigeria we do not really have a very proper, how would I put it, database of our populace in the sense. So the NIN program would have really served us well, as a form of national insurance or something number to link up everybody and say, okay, this is how it should go. However, I think that the deployment was quite done wrongly. The strategy and approach was done wrongly, and there was more of a threat approach than enabling people understand the benefits and the need. Also, I mean, if you want to talk about linking up NIN, I believe that there are technologies now that could automatically do a link up from NIN to, people's phone numbers and all that. You don't necessarily have to wait till people, type the USSD code or something like that to link up the NIN to the phone number. So I think we're not being proactive around the rollout of national security numbers and all the likes. And we're leaving it open to a populace that are already, trapped, in the need to get across on a day-to-day and all that. The impact on the economy is just very simple. That disconnect will lead to a lot of loss of revenue. It will lead to loss in economic productivity as well, because in terms of access to internet and engagement and phone calls and all of those business initiatives, there would be a gross drop in that, and that may affect the speed of things. So we are not being able to contain so much around what the effect will be, but from a top of mind, that digital divide, that inequality around scaling and ensuring that a critical mass of the average Nigerian are on the productive pool on a daily basis is being hampered as a result of the poor rollout of the NIN program, first of all, than putting the blame on Nigerians that they haven't linked up the SIM cards.
So Adeleru said that there have actually been 8 extensions, and we've heard from the Subscribers Association that government should in fact have another 3-month extension to this, but it doesn't seem like the telco operators are in support of that. But security has been the overarching reason for this, given from the government saying that they need to address the security situation, this issue around kidnappers being able to call, and the criticisms why kidnappers are able to make calls and no one's able to trace it, but yet you say you have a national identity number policy, which should let us know every single person who's making a call. Is security enough of a reason to now sort of cause this pause in economic activities?
Well, security could be a major reason. It's a necessary reason, but not really, a sufficient reason in the sense. And that's because, we're just trying to look for something to pin it on, all right? A lot of times we've seen our policy programs fail due to poor execution or due to lack of proactive execution in the sense, all right? As at when the NIN started, all right, we could have mapped out all that could have gone wrong and all that should go right, and then ask ourselves, how do we stay ahead of the curve? You can't say that people around in Nigeria, kidnappers or not, are making phone calls and you cannot trace where it's coming from in terms of looking at the insecurity challenge now in the country. You should be able to do that because, the banks have your contact, the telcos have your contact, all right? People have few different forms in their lives. And data is abundant. Data is literally like water, but we do not know how to harness it intelligently. And that's a gross fiscal policy failure, all right? Or that's a gross, FGN or state government failure as well. And I don't think it makes sense to pin it down on insecurity. I think we have every reason to stay steps ahead of this curve, all right? There are many ways that NIN numbers can be linked to phone numbers without individuals having to go through the particular code and all that, all right? We just don't have a very bad habit of, doing the last things, doing the first things last, and then trying to put the blame on something else. I think we could have taken much more responsibility for this process. Even if you extend by another 3 months, I do not think that Nigerians would also meet up with the targets, because we are not so much of a very inquisitive and we're not so much of a people driven by these things, all right? The government needs to think intelligently and proactively around harnessing these solutions for growth and all of that. That's my own take on this.
Okay, and at least that's something that you and Adeleru agree on, that even with an extension, we're not going to get full compliance as it is. So Nigeria ranks 131st on the Ease of Doing Business Index, lagging behind on indices such as foreign direct investment, GDP growth rate, tax rates, and so many other things, especially around the issue around government regulation and policy. And so this is a government regulation. This is a government policy that we're seeing come into full effect now as it is. How can governments ensure such policies as the NIN, which does have a good idea from the beginning and a good target for what it aims to do, how can governments ensure that such policies at the end of the day don't backfire and actually push FDI away, push investors away, or make people who are looking at Nigeria as a business destination to think twice about coming here?
All right, thank you very much, Tolu, for the question. Yes, so you can have a very good idea, as well as a very good outcome or potentially good outcome. But then again, the challenge could be that you have a very poor design, all right? And a lot of times everything fails on design. And that's one block that we do not really pay attention to this part of the world. So good idea, good outcome, but very poor design would turn a good idea to a very frustrating process, all right? And it will hamper heavily on this so-called ease of doing business and trying to achieve a level of seamlessness in the process of onboarding for productivity. I think it's a design failure. I will see that over and over again beyond just the NIN conversation. And this is not strictly to a conversation pertaining to the public sector. A lot of private sector folks are also very, very, you say that challenge a lot in the private sector. So I think that at the design stage, we could have thought it through, that what would be the challenge or what should the complete onboarding process looks like. Okay, people show up. And in fact, there was no reason why individuals should have to go to a physical location to get an NIN number done. All right, we could have developed a website or an app and encourage Nigerians to go there and do that, or there are already a lot of mainstream systems, all right, to duplicate and create all of these solutions, and thereby automatically linking and onboarding, and all that. So it's a design challenge. A lot of people do not think through clearly in terms of design thinking for solutions, so that the idea that makes sense would also meet with the necessary outcome, all right, to drive whatever objectives we're looking at the end of the day. So I would think of it as a design solution. Next time, we need to think end-to-end than thinking of one block only, and then you're expecting a group of people who are not really giving to the process, all right, to do the work for you. That's a reactive strategy. And what is happening now by extending for another 3 months is a reactive strategy.
All right, and that hasn't come from government, but that's just a request as it is. I'm not sure it's going to happen. As Adebayo said, there have been 8 extensions already, but we're going to see how this plays out over the next few days. 70 million unique SIMs right now are not being able to make calls and do 1 or 2 other things. And we don't know, as he said, they may wake up tomorrow and the government says deactivate those lines that are not linked to the NIN. But it's a fast-moving situation. It's one that's continuing to develop as all the stakeholders involved are getting involved. So Gospel will definitely be touching base to see how other things play out. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you for having me. Looking forward. Have a great day.
It's the same to you. There are over 197 million unique SIMs in Nigeria. Not necessarily individuals are all behind those SIMs. As my first guest said, sometimes you find 2 or 3 SIMs being held by one Nigerian. As it is now, we have about 125 million that the NIMC has said have actually been linked. And we have another about 78 million unique NINs that have been given out. But as the situation stands right now, over 70 million unique SIMs have not been linked to the NIN, and they have been barred from doing certain activities. Could that mean deactivation in the near future, or could it mean an extension with more pressure being put on the government? We'll be keeping an eye on this situation. It's very critical right now in Nigeria concerning, of course, the digital economy and those who work in that space and how things are playing out. But make sure you stay tuned to Business Edge. We'll have all the latest right here. Up next is NC4 to watch. And as we look at the stories we're keeping our eyes on, we start in the southern part of the continent where, of course, well, I take that back. We start in the east, I beg your pardon. Kenya's government has agreed to compensate oil marketers for selling fuel they imported at rates higher than what's reflected in the retail cap in a bid to end a supply shortage in the country. Retailers will now be subsidized to sell gasoline and diesel from cargoes that arrived after the March 15th monthly pricing window. The price of oil has skyrocketed in part due to the war in Ukraine. This means the current retail prices won't change until the next review. And now to the southern part of the continent. South Africa's Competition Commission, in its latest essential food pricing monitoring report, says avocados, oranges, tomatoes, chicken parts, and cooking oil are some of the food items that have seen volatile price increases over the last 2 years as a result of global inflationary pressures, as well as local disruptions and extreme weather events. The report tracked food price data up until January 2022 before Russia launched its attack on Ukraine. South African retailers can expect to see gains in sales during the upcoming Easter weekend despite trading in an environment hit by an economic storm. The latest Easter retail research study by Capital Connect shows that end-of-season sales Easter-related promotions, and school holidays all help to drive an uptick in retail trade over the Easter period, although not all retailers will benefit equally. And finally, crude oil prices rose on Thursday from a 3-week low touched in the previous session after consuming nations announced a huge release of oil from emergency reserves, as worries over tight supplies still clouded the market outlook. Brent crude futures climbed to $102.52 a barrel, while U.S. WTI crude futures rose to $97.78 a barrel. Both benchmarks plunged more than 5% in the previous session and hit their lowest closing levels since March 16th. And that's the show. It's a conversation here in Nigeria that is quite a fast-moving one. So, of course, as we have updates, you can be sure you'll find them on News Central now and throughout the day right here on News Central. Don't forget to follow us on social media. Go to our website, download our mobile app, and, of course, follow us and subscribe on YouTube and watch us on the platforms we're available. Until next time, I'm Tolulope Adeleru-Balogun.